Hello and welcome to Focus on the Arts. I am Paul Kreider, Dean of the College of Creative Arts at West Virginia University in Morgantown. Our show attempts to excite our audience about new and interesting arts events and practices occurring within the university and in the state of West Virginia. This show serves to inform you about some of the wonderful creative arts programs at WVU. Our Focus on the Arts guests today are Associate Professor of Costume Design, Mary McClung, and she heads the Costume Design program at WVU, and also here is Professor Joanne Segrist, who is the Director of the Puppetry program at WVU. So welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming on. So let's start with you, Mary, and let's talk about being a costume designer. And how does one, a young man or woman, they have interests. What interests do they really need to have in order to think about a career and an education and a career in costume design?
Well, I mean, I think anybody who has an interest in storytelling, I mean, certainly that's a part of the process. It's being a collaborative artist and helping with by telling the story. So anybody who has an interest in that, and then someone who has an interest in creating the look of a story or creating that sort of look of a story to bring people into it. That's obviously another thing, but also someone who has a sense of design, sense of color, sense of texture, all those sorts of things, and certainly an art background is very helpful. You know, to help all that, to make it really rich.
So you also need skills in drawing,
painting. Yes,
right.
You know, yeah, just everything really. I mean, the more you can bring to it, the richer it is, I think.
Right.
Yes.
So one of the things that's happening right now, you know, we're obviously filming this, you know, around the holidays, and the movie Lincoln recently came out. Have you seen it yet?
I've not seen it.
You have not seen
I have
it,
not
but
seen it.
well, I saw it. It's pretty special, you know, film, and the costumes were outstanding. So, thinking about a costume designer who's going to design for a theatrical performance or a film or whatever it might be, what really is involved in looking at the authenticness of costumes from an era, from a period?
Well, a lot of it in terms of theatrical versus film. A lot of it in terms of theater, it's reading the play and using that as your kind of your focus, or really your Bible in a way. And then working with your director to get the concept of what you want in terms of your how you want to, you know, the style you want to impress on it, or the kind of the mood you want it to feel. So it could be this is kind of a leap, but it could be a Lincoln with, you know, that's sort of a musical, and it has a different feel than the very historical and very real feeling Lincoln. So that would be certainly different takes on it. Now, film, they seem to tend to try to be very real, especially if they want to capture that historical feel. So in terms of how somebody might approach that particular film, they'd need a designer that had very wonderful attention to detail, know where to get the fabrics that they needed that were sort of custom to that period, dyes that were certainly custom to that period, because you're not going to be able to find a lot of dyes that we use now, certainly then. Lots of wools, lots of real fabrics.
That takes
no
a
plastics.
lot of research.
Oh my goodness. And then to have the places to make them and to tailor things just so to make them look spot on, you know, that's, especially for close-ups and things like that, you know, you see a lot with film today. So lots of detail, lots of detail.
So if a student comes to any institution and they want to study costume design, what are some of the courses that they would have to take and the sequence of those courses as they go through the curriculum?
Generally, they'll come into a course as a freshman, let's say, and we'll kind of give them a crash course into stage design, and it will be the whole sort of enchilada. It'll be lighting, it'll be scenic, it'll be costume, it'll be sort of all in one. But it'll be a basic course where we're teaching them design, color aesthetic, shapes, and how to put things together to kind of help tell a story. So they may start with by reading a script and then kind of putting things together in space. And then after their first year of that sort of whole sort of spread of classes or kind of areas of study, then we focus them, we take them into separate classes, and we say take them into a costume design course. And then I'll start teaching them about texture and how texture can influence an audience and kind of draw them in without drawing attention away from what's going on stage, but help to tell the story, you know, help to tell it. And I firmly believe that I'm teaching them how to be a theatrical anthropologist, basically, is what I kind of feel. More so even to some degree than a scene designer or light designer, because you're reading that script, the playwright is telling you something, the words of a playwright, but also the words that the playwright puts in the mouths of the characters, they're telling you something about the characters. So you're like going through their closets, their mental closets and everything. The decisions that those characters are making that day, that's what they should be wearing. Plus, the concept that the director gives you, you know, you're going to be imposing that on, or, you know, applying that to the look of the show. So it's just all these things that kind of, you know, meld together to make these characters and to give it this look.
So a student that comes through a design program at WVU,
Yes.
As an undergraduate student, 4 years, 4.5 years, whatever it might end up being,
Okay.
do they get an opportunity to design for the stage, or do they design only for studio student shows? And they obviously are doing a lot of building of your designs.
Yes, yes.
Because you're the main designer for the main stage shows.
And we also, our graduate students also design.
Okay.
And if I have undergraduate students, they have to earn it. They have to earn it. So you have to work hard and show that they're very devoted to it, because if they're not devoted to providing the machine with what it needs, that's kind of the way I look at our shops. We are a machine. When we get in action, we don't want anything to put on the brakes for us. So the designer has to be there, getting all of our fabrics for us and everything in place. The designs have to be on time. So they have to really earn that spot to be a designer. So, but they have design. We have dance opportunities for them to design. We have many small shows that are very compact, and they're all for our main stage. So they would get a chance to do that if they prove themselves. Absolutely. It often programs don't let undergraduates design, but we will give them that chance if they prove themselves. Yes.
Yeah. So there's plenty of work to do behind the scenes.
And I think it's so important as a designer to know all of these things, you know, how to make a wig, how to design and produce a prosthetic makeup, and how to build a costume, because then you can as a designer, have a communication with the people that might be doing that with you, you know, or for you later down the road. So I think it's
let's talk about that for a quick second, because we can then segue into puppets.
Okay.
But so you're also teaching makeup.
I teach makeup.
And wig making.
Wig making, costume crafts.
Masks.
Yes. And mask puppets. I do teach a puppetry course, and costume construction, and just as much, you know, costume crafts, which is a whole gamut of making armor and all sorts of different things. Someone said to me, "Is there anything that you can't make?" Well, I can't make everything, but I'm not afraid to leap in and try.
Right.
And that's kind of what I want to instill in my students. Don't be afraid of it, because a lot of times I feel like they're so hesitant. They maybe are afraid to draw, which is kind of a funny thing to me. But I've drawn so much that I'm just kind of so used to it now, but they seem, you know, a little hesitant. But I'm like, just leap in, get your hands dirty, try this. And I, you know, there's nothing, at least my philosophy, there's nothing that they can't do if they just try and keep working at it, keep working at it. That's the way I hope that they feel, you know, just leap in and try. So I'm gonna try.
That's great. Well, this last summer we had the steel drum band go to Washington, D.C., and there was a mascot that went along with them, the blue and gold lizard.
Yes.
And I think you designed.
I designed it.
You designed that, and that ended up being the most photographed image or subject for the whole Folklife Festival last summer.
That was nice. That was really nice.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. The kids loved it. Families loved it as well.
It's almost good if you have like an icon that people can sort of, you know, identify with, or kind of, it was something that walked around and could interact with people. I think which is puppetry, you know, certainly.
Right. So
yeah, that's great.
So you're working in a puppetry program.
Yes.
And so you're mostly in design and building of some puppets primarily. Yeah. Well, let's segue over to Joanne Segrist, and who's been head of the puppetry program for a while.
Over 30 years.
Over 30 years.
Yes.
Okay. And one of the few puppetry programs in the country.
That's correct. There are 3 degree offering programs in the United States.
Right. That's great. So this is the place to come for if somebody wants to get immersed in the artistry of making and performing with puppets.
Correct.
This
correct.
is the place.
And I think another very unique factor to our program is we have the WVU Puppet Mobile, and its primary function is to travel around the state as well as region. We've been in all 55 counties. We've performed at many libraries, many community centers, sheltered workshops, Tamarack, the Cultural Center here. The Puppet Mobile was one of the premier groups that performed when the Cultural Center opened here summer of 1976.
Wow, good memory. So what would be in your mind, your experience, the human fascination with puppets or objects, inanimate objects? So, yeah.
Well, I think it's intrinsic to who we are as human beings. We all love our dolls and our toys when we grow up. And in today's world, the electronic puppet, as I like to call it sometimes, which would be characters in animation or in films or video games, there's just always been this interest that a human being has to something that is inanimate. And if you go back to primitive cultures and civilizations, and you might see tribal rites and study historically, or even looking at things through anthropology and digs, where they might find objects that in fact could have been an effigy or a fetish, or a shaman might have held a figurelet to use in religious ritual, which of course religious ritual was the springboard to the creation of theater, and obviously the other art forms, art, music, dance, in religious rituals. And then my belief is that we just have this fascination. Puppets are visual, and they are the consummate of being a piece of sculpture, being an actor, but an inanimate actor. And behind it is a human being, puppet actor. And once again, I think the fascination centers around that if choreography is involved from a dancing standpoint, literary writing from script, and obviously music. Puppetry also has a lot of similarities to the art form music as well as dance, because it's visually positioned. We'd rather see something interesting with the puppet than hear the puppet talk necessarily. And it crosses all barriers internationally of doing performances, quite possibly in puppet form, that does not have to have language, or you don't have to understand the language for the story in the piece with the inanimate, with the puppet, to be very entertaining and can have really profound effects. In today's current Broadway scene, one of the smash hits is War Horse. And here you have the actor on stage along with the puppet. If we go back for the blockbuster hit of The Lion King that Julie Taymor directed and won a Tony, and there's so much puppetry that is used. I'm going from ancient times up to our cultures and what is very current today, that theme parks, that you can take anything and turn it into a puppet, an animal, an idea, a lamp, a candle, and you know, anthropomorphically turn it into a character.
Well, I just thought of Beauty and the Beast, the animated film, with the candle and the you know, all of the objects that come to life. That's interesting. So let's think about a student who comes to WVU. It's a theater major.
Correct.
But they're going to be a puppeteer, for lack of, is that the correct term? Puppeteer?
A puppet artist.
Puppet artist.
Yes. Okay.
And so how does the curriculum differ? And where does it go from a general core emphasis into the puppetry emphasis?
Well, we have the Bachelor of Fine Arts, and we really have three components to the degree program. We have the puppetry. We also have a section which is theater for youth, and this would be the study and work for possibly actors in children's theater or youth productions. That also encompasses areas where, because we have a youth children's community arts theater program where children can come in and actually act and learn the craft. And so the students in my degree program are really the active staff in working on that level. And then we have, as the third component, creative dramatics. And this really impacts children who are doing, and youth who are doing drama in the classroom. And also we get lots of students who are not just theater majors, but who it's part of their required curriculum in education in early childhood, for example, because there's a lot of puppetry that's done in on those levels. And but for a student coming into our program, the majority of them are interested in the puppetry, but but obviously to be well versed in these other two areas,
Develop
theater for
options.
youth, as well as you know, the creative drama aspect. Some come in and then shift into an area away from puppetry. Some come into the children's theater and then want to focus more to the puppetry. So it's my responsibility as the program director to be totally open and encouraging to go in those directions.
Well, it gives the students a broader focus and more marketability in the future,
Absolutely.
I would think.
No question.
Yeah.
For example, one of my students was a puppetry and children's theater major, one of the top students. I took him when I went to do an international work in China. He graduated. He thought he wanted to do puppetry. He got an internship at the Kennedy Center in their theater education program, and he now lives in Washington, D.C. and is in charge of the whole education department at the National Geographic.
That's great. That's great.
I should also mention that in speaking about a student and how they learn and grow and do their training. Currently, we have one student who came in who wanted to do lots of puppetry and came into my program, and then began working with Mary, and then came to the conclusion he wanted to be a design technical theater major. But we're very happy about that because he still actively works with my program and the actual majors, but he's,
Yes.
and I think it's our responsibility, and I think we do it very well as faculty, to understand where a student wants to be headed and in the training.
Well, let me ask you both a question. I mean, so we have some listeners out there, viewers of the program today, young artists thinking about costume design or puppetry as a profession later on, or even parents worried about their child wanting to do costume design in the future. What is the future of costume design and puppet artistry in years to come? And what do you see the value? What's the value of getting a degree in costume design? How do they use it?
Well, our degree is in technical theater and design. So it's costume design and technology is what they would be. Because we do design, but we also encourage them to understand the technology back sort of end of it as well, which is certainly not the end of it. They're both kind of very wonderful and even. What I hope that they can do is that they'll get a job at any theater that they want. I mean, they will just you know. And it could be in any area. They could start as a design assistant and then move up to where they're a resident artist in a theater. They could do technical theater. There's jobs as stitchers, there's jobs as cutter drapers to make the patterns. There's jobs as hat makers and wig. You know, there's all these sorts of different things that they can do. And then be getting design jobs on the side. I mean, there's lots of things. I've had students that have moved to Chicago and they're freelancing. You know, they're doing puppet design. You know, they're doing building puppets. They're building armor. They're doing couture wedding dresses. You know, there's all these sorts of things that you just don't realize they're out there. And people, you know, we all want to work and we all want to do. You know, we're not going to all be like Fortune 500. You know. Who wants to do that? I don't know, but
well, they could end up like you,
professor at university. They could be professor at university,
right.
Which is by no means dull. I just want to say, because I am always learning something every day. I mean, I'm the student most of the time. I'm learning something every day, and you know, and I have students who have ended up at places where they're still in entertainment. They're at puppetry companies. I mean, I had worked at a puppetry company for 4 years, and they're there now. So I mean, the connections that I've made, I'm kind of leading them in that direction as well. But there's certainly jobs. You just have to, you know, dig.
Joanne, you mentioned the student who's now at National Geographic.
Correct.
Any other good stories to tell about your former students?
Well, I think I have many. I've had many students who've worked in the college internship program at Walt Disney World, but also have had 3 or 4 that have been regular puppeteers, who 2 are still working there. There's a gentleman who was one of our graduates in 1980. He then moved to Houston. The Muppets tried to recruit him very, very heavily, but he had begun his own company in Houston. It's called Puppet Pizzazz. It's was voted about 10 years ago by Town and Country magazine as the #1 arts organization in Houston.
Wow.
We have students who then, when they graduate, as Mary said, some work for puppet building operations. I've also had several students who want to go on in graduate school, and then they follow that path either in primarily in children's theater and creative drama, and then are now university professors themselves.
Right. That's wonderful. So,
Oh, and
so
just
there's a lot of other.
Yeah, and then
opportunities.
one other thing that I'm very, very keen on is when the students are here studying, to have them explore museums, whether it be children's museums in the country, or science museums, or even just a regular, art museum, because they always have education departments. And for some of my graduates, can do an internship there, and it might lead to a whole arena where they're doing theater or even a puppetry aspect. For example, we've had an ongoing relationship, a very strong one for 20-some years, with the Pittsburgh Children's Museum, because they have a permanent puppet exhibit, also the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta. I've had students go there and have been interns and offer jobs too.
So, real quick, just, not want to spend too much time on this because we have some show and tell to do here at the end of the show. But one thing that intrigues me is, as a costume designer and as a puppetry artist, how in your collaborations with other artists in a production, for example, are you as an artist designer able to influence the direction of the production?
I certainly hope that we can.
Give me an example.
Well, I mean, if you're in on the ground floor with a director, and generally we are, because we have a process that we go through. We read the play and we talk to the director, and we're a team. We're a team of people, and the director will say, I'm thinking about this, but then you go off and you'll do research and you'll bring in ideas and your interpretation of the show or whatever that you're doing, and you'll bring in ideas, and maybe it's something that no one thought about, and then the scenic designer will see that, and they're like, oh, I love that color, or I love the way that's going, or do you have this impression? And then from that, things grow and things happen. That it's absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely you can.
So that's the best process to be in.
That is the best process. Right. Absolutely. Right. Especially when a director realizes what they have. That they don't have to worry about all of that. Just let this person take care of that visual. I'll do this other sort of directing thing, acting thing. But no, it's wonderful.
I'm waiting for someday for a good, great production of opera with puppets. That's what I'm waiting for. I know it's been done, but I want to see another one. I want to see something great.
Yes.
So I was in Salzburg last summer, and they have the Marionette Theater.
Yes, I was going to mention Salzburg is obviously
they do the operas
the top
all the time.
of the line.
Yeah, and
yes.
Mozart stuff. So.
Definitely.
Well, we have some show and tell. We have puppets. You brought some with us at all different shapes and sizes and different kinds of things.
Very, very quickly here on the coffee table. We have puppet history classes, and they study puppets from other cultures and other areas of the world. And this is a small rod puppet from China, as they would use there. I've written a book about the great puppet heroes from around the world, and one of the chapters centers around these two puppets. They are Vietnamese water puppets, and the performances, the puppeteers are up into their waists in water, and the entire shows in Vietnam are performed in water. It's comparable to the Peking Opera in China, or the Kabuki Theater in Japan. And teachers and children especially love when we're doing workshops, educational workshops, are totally mesmerized with Vietnamese water puppets. I also brought, because it's very much part of our program, and we like very much, we have a Puppetry for Educators class where our university students and then students from other parts of the university who are like education majors, even communication majors. So I've even had a horticulture major who was going to eventually go and wanted to work with educational programs with children. And here are just some simple samples of the kinds of puppets that we work with children to create.
So these are child created.
Exactly,
basically.
the children themselves have made.
Wonderful.
These by 3rd and 4th graders, and this is a marionette. Unfortunately, he's lost the control that children made around a production of The Emperor's New Clothes. We also do workshops in this part of our program with special populations. We've done the Puppet Mobiles performed at Romney School of the Deaf and Blind, and in fact next week we're going into a couple of local schools and work with special education students with body puppets.
Excellent.
So these are some of our little friends.
And you have some bigger friends too?
I do. I do. We have a series with our program where I allow the students, and Mary and I have talked about this, and it's a wonderful avenue. The students get very mesmerized and like it very much, of adult puppetry not for youth audiences but for adults. And these are some flat one-dimensional puppets from Edgar Allan Poe's The Masque of the Red Death, as part of our adult series called Illusions. And then I also have...
Yeah, I can take that.
Oh, thank you.
In the hip. Do you want this one?
Oh, yes.
There you go.
This shows the collaboration with Mary's program and also the puppetry program and also the acting program and the directing program. So I'll allow her to discuss this.
This was for a production of a Caucasian chalk circle, and the puppet style was based on a sort of a kind of a handicraft look of a lot of Russian dolls and things. So we did it with cheesecloth and glue and kind of made them look very stylized and kind of rough. He's Prince Abashvili. He was missing his hat, but anyway, he's crowned. Anyway.
Energetic.
Hand and rod puppet. Had a little too much coffee.
All right, what's this guy over here? Uh-oh, he fell. Let's see if I can get it. Here we go.
Thank you. This is obviously a seahorse puppet. We had the opportunity and were approached to create for children's concerts with the Wheeling Symphony and also with our WVU Symphony Orchestra. We brought performances here to the Cultural Center and also toured it limitedly, where puppeteers were on stage with the orchestra, a la similar to Peter and the Wolf. And the name of the show was The Adventures of Ambrose Aquatic. I worked with the conductors. We pulled together various classical pieces, and then it also was filmed for West Virginia Public Television and was shown a lot.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's much appreciated that you're here. We got to wrap this up. So as we wrap it up today, I want to thank our guests for coming on the show, and please let me also thank the staff here at the Library Commission and Cultural Center for their work on this production. Their efforts are much, much appreciated. I also want to thank you for watching. If you would like any further information about the College of Creative Arts at WVU, please visit our website at www.ccarts.wvu.edu. By visiting the site, you can also like us on Facebook and learn more about daily happenings at the College of Creative Arts. Thanks again for watching. We plan to air a different show each month and hope to see you again for another episode of Focus on the Arts.